1998, USA. 4 friends, Jim, Oz, Kevin and Paul, are graduating from East Great Falls High School this year. They are much less concerned about final exams than about not having their first sexual experience. They consider it a bad manner to go to college being a virgin, and even suspect that there is a separate dormitory for such losers. Jim is shy and unsure of himself, so he is content only with watching adult films. Oz is a high school lacrosse star and meets girls with determination and tenacity as his best qualities. Paul is an intellectual and an aesthete, and he likes to compensate for the lack of all other attractive sides with unusual methods of seduction. Kevin is the only one who is in the romantic stage of a relationship with a girl. Friends joke that Kevin is on the bench and is unlikely to experience the third stage of his relationship with Vicky. Kevin admits that sometimes she gives him oral pleasure, so he doesn't feel like on the bench. Jim asks how good it feels to be in stage 2.5, and Kevin compares the feeling to apple pie. Jim's classmate, Steven Stifler, is an experienced heartthrob and party organizer, so he has long gone through all possible stages and laughs at the problems of 4 friends. They are forced to be friends with the eccentric Stifler because this allows them to receive an invitation to the parties that he organizes at his home when his mother leaves. 3 weeks before graduation, friends come to Stifler's house for another party. There, they admire the beauty of his mother depicted in the portrait. Later, Jim tries to talk to his pretty classmate Nadia, who has also joined the party. Jim is very worried and cannot put 2 words together, so his attempt to interest Nadia fails. Oz meets a girl and offers to drive to the lake right now at night. The girl agrees, but upon arrival her romantic mood disappears, because she learns that Oz just wants to seem sensual. But he is not. He abruptly switched from beautiful words to an offer of intimacy, and this is what upset the girl. She thinks Oz is stupid and takes him back to Stifler's house. After the party, friends discuss yesterday's failures, and only Paul is optimistic, because he is an intellectual who has been drinking whiskey since the morning. Kevin proposes a pact during these 3 weeks, including graduation. All 4 classmates should have sex, and instead of banter, they will help and support each other, whatever that means. In order not to hope for the last, prom night, Jim registers on a dating site, and Oz becomes a member of a jazz choir, which consists of girls rumored to be quite free-minded. Stifler makes fun of Oz and his new hobby, so he explains his idea. The girls from the choir do not know Oz, and he considers this a good opportunity to show off his more romantic self and thus seduce one of them. Girls from the dating site are not interested in Jim, so he continues to watch adult films. One day, his father comes into his room and shows him erotic magazines that he specially bought for Jim. He is embarrassed by his parents' advice, so his father leaves this educational material in Jim's bedside table. At school, Kevin meets Paul, who has set up a miniature golf course right outside the entrance. Kevin doubts that this method of attracting attention will be able to interest anyone, but Paul, as always, is calm and confident. The only thing he asks is to confirm any rumors that Kevin hears from schoolgirls. Paul leaves when suddenly a girl runs up to Kevin and asks if it's true that Paul has not only a golf club such a big size. Kevin is confused but answers in the affirmative, and the girl leaves to tell her friends about this. Later, Kevin calls his brother, who has been studying in college for a long time, and asks him to share his experience in terms of sexual caresses. Brother tells Kevin a secret and lets him know about the cache, which is located in the library. There, Kevin finds a large and heavy book written by former graduates, which has answers to all questions. Oz is inspired by choral singing, and one day at a rehearsal, he improvises and pleasantly surprises the choir master. Oz has a good tenor, and his sincerity attracts a beautiful girl from the group named Heather. She admits that she did not expect to see a subtle and sensual soul in the pumped-up athlete. Oz is a little offended and advises Heather not to succumb to stereotypical thinking, which causes a response from her. Heather is a member of the choir, so at school she is perceived as too good girl, unable to party, drink alcohol, and enjoy the life of a typical teenager. Oz and Heather suffer equally from stereotypical views, and this circumstance makes their friendship stronger. After school, Jim comes home and sees the apple pie that his mother made before leaving. The memory of the third stage, the thirst for knowledge, and the absence of his father prompt Jim to test how enjoyable the pie is, not only as food. First Jim puts his fingers in the pie and then puts not fingers. Jim is caught doing this when his father returns at the wrong time, and both men decide that they won't eat pie today and Mom shouldn't know about the fate of her culinary masterpiece. The next day, Heather visits the stadium and invites Oz to go to prom together. He agrees and a joyful Heather leaves, but then she suddenly notices Stifler congratulating Oz. Heather is disappointed because she sees Stifler demonstrating the pose, in which Oz will have to end the date. Later, Kevin comes to Vicky's house to put into practice all the material he has learned from the Book of Secrets. Vicky refuses the full penetration, and then Kevin orally brings her to orgasm. The next day, he shares his new experience with his friends. At the moment, only Jim has made no progress, when suddenly Nadia turns to him and asks him to help with a history essay. She will be able to visit Jim tomorrow after the dance, and Nadia will need to change clothes in his room. Stunned Jim happily agrees, and he is not even bothered by his low knowledge of history. Friends and Stifler learn about the upcoming event and persuade Jim to connect a webcam in the room to a closed server to watch the beautiful Nadia change clothes. Even Paul, whom Stifler calls a brat and a Finch, supports this idea. Jim agrees, and when Nadia comes to visit him, he leaves her in his room with the webcam on. Jim leaves the house and runs to Kevin's to watch Nadia change clothes. He set up the camera perfectly, but forgot to make the server private, and now the whole school is looking at naked Nadia. She lies down on Jim's bed and accidentally finds the adult magazines his father left him. Nadia gets excited and begins to caress herself, and Jim cannot believe his eyes. He runs home to offer Nadia his hand or any other help. She is a little embarrassed when Jim comes into the room, but invites him to dance a striptease. Jim is as much a dancer as he is a history buff, so his performance will make everyone in the audience laugh. Nadia touches Jim, and the overexcited teenager suddenly loses control of the situation. He leaves the race early, and upset Nadia goes home. The next day, she finds out that she was not the only spectator of the fiery dance, and her parents already know about this incident. Nadia returns home to the Czech Republic, and Jim is left to endure the shame alone, because now all the schoolgirls know how fast he is. During recess, Jim is approached by classmate Michelle. She is an outcast and an eccentric member of the orchestra. Since Michelle is the only girl who didn't see yesterday's video, Jim asks her to the prom and she accepts. The choir master approves of Oz's proposal to perform a duet with Heather, so she comes to him in the evening to rehearse. He explains Stifler's antics at the stadium by saying that Stifler is a jerk, and then Oz admits that meeting Heather changed him. He's not like Stifler, and he doesn't want to be like him. Heather forgets about her grievances, and together they rehearse for a future important performance. The next day, Oz learns that the festival sing-along coincides with the lacrosse final game, where he is the leading forward and the school's hope. Oz apologizes to Heather and says he can't cross off 4 years of training. She is upset, but is forced to accept Oz's decision as very logical and fair. The day of the lacrosse finals arrives, and Oz plays the first half admirably before going to break. He hears a motivational speech from the coach about the 4 spent years and how important it is for each of the athletes. Oz understands that he played lacrosse all this time and did not see other ways of self-realization. But now he has something to compare with. He wishes the team good luck and runs to the festival to perform a duet with Heather. He admits that he quit playing not for the choir, but for Heather. She is finally convinced of Oz's sincerity and kisses him, and then they perform at the festival together. Later, the friends arrive for the prom, and Kevin asks about the progress of Paul, Oz, and Jim. Paul, as always, doesn't have a plan, but he doesn't worry about it either. Oz is no longer interested in their pact, because now he is happy in his relationship with Heather and sees no point in rushing. Jim is upset about his failure with Nadia and is now glad that he has at least some kind of interlocutor at all. Jim doesn't know what sex is, but he already hates it because of so many difficulties and problems. Jim invites Michelle to go to Stifler's party after the prom, and she agrees. Only Oz refuses to go, and together with Heather they go to the lake. There, Oz tells her that the evening of the festival was the first time he heard the coach in a different way. The coach always demanded to score a goal, and this is not surprising. But Oz made a mistake when he began to look for the enemy goal outside the stadium. Oz admits that he came to the choir in order to find a girl and score a goal on her. Oz rethought his goal, because falling in love with Heather turned out to be a much more interesting and exciting stage than just hitting the goal. Heather kisses Oz, and they remain to watch the sunrise by the lake on the veranda of a closed restaurant. And now, when the foreplay has become more valuable to Oz than the goal itself, he makes love to Heather. Jim arrives at the party with Michelle and they drink alcohol, remembering interesting stories from life. Jim is very surprised when he finds out how lustful Michelle is, like her entire musical group. Michelle admits that she is tired of sitting here and waiting for Jim to find a room for them. There, Michelle says that she saw Jim dance, but this does not change her attitude, because in her orchestra it is an ordinary Monday. Kevin retreats to Stifler's house with Vicky, confesses his love for her, and then they make love. One floor below, Paul sees a door with a "Do Not Disturb" sign on it, and he ignores the warning. He enters the billiard room, where he meets Stifler's mother and asks what kind of whiskey she wants to treat him to. The charming woman asks why Paul doesn't drink beer, like all the other guests. He admits that he prefers only strong drinks and values long-term aging. Paul tastes whiskey that is older than he is and admires the beauty of Stifler's mother. She can't stand it anymore and throws Paul onto the pool table. Morning comes and Jim wakes up alone and explains Michelle's absence by saying that she was using him for carnal pleasures. Kevin and Vicky will soon separate because they will go to different colleges, which are very far from each other. Despite this, they had a perfect night and will not regret what they did. Oz wakes up on the veranda in the arms of his beloved Heather and feels happy. Stifler enters the pool room and faints when he sees his naked mother riding Paul the Finch. Later, Jim makes up with Nadia via video call and amuses her with a new private dance, which now only she will see. Jim's father notices this and begins to dance also, endlessly proud of his son.